If this is June, I'd hate to see January. I'd want to freeze my backside off in the summertime. I'd have stayed in Scotland. Don't mind saying it, I'm very disappointed.
Charles wasn't lying. New Eden is cold as death.
If the name Don't Nod mostly conjures thoughts of the episodic adventures of Life is Strange, or the beautiful puzzle platforming of Jusant for you, then Banishers Ghosts of New Eden might seem like a little bit of a departure.
These people have no idea what they're up against.
In truth though, this new action RPG draws its heritage from other games in the studio's portfolio, like Vampire, and even one of my personal favourites, Remember Me. It's a combat-filled adventure, but one that also has a rich and immersive storyline.
As it is called, your serving woman may sit while we talk.
I'm the help. She's the boss. You're not Charles.
It's this lean towards a narrative and the consequential decision-making that grabs you very early on in Antea and Red's tale. The experienced spirit hunters are tasked with freeing the town of New Eden from a nightmarish curse and malevolent hauntings.
We came here to help Charles and help Charles with Charles.
And it isn't too long before things take a turn for the worse. Antea suffers a fatal blow during the game's opening, leaving her as the very thing she dedicated her life to destroying. It's a twist that not only sets up the combination of mortal weapons and ethereal abilities in the third-person combat, but also leaves the couple, who are lovers as well as working companions, with some serious moral dilemmas.
Just maybe we could consider it.
Working together though, the pair set out to fulfill their duties, and must seek out clues to uncover the motivations of both the living and the dead as they solve each ghostly manifestation. It's a path that leads to some profound decision making, with your choices having real consequences and impact on the story. Will you banish the spirits and condemn them to suffer an eternity in the void, or find them worthy to ascend to a serene afterlife? Maybe you'll choose to make those responsible pay for their actions, or do whatever it takes to save your love, no matter what the price. It's compelling and thought-provoking stuff, and the story of love, death and sacrifice is backed by strong visuals and a great 17th century aesthetic. There is more than enough then to offer inspiration to jump into the game's photo mode. This is a first for Don't Nod as far as I know, so it's interesting to see what they've done right, as well as what they've done wrong. On paper at least, it seems like Banishers should have the makings of a pretty good photo mode. It includes a convenient quick access shortcut, a free camera with reasonably good range, and has no limits on its pan, tilt or roll. The essential optical controls like field of view, manual focus and aperture values are also present for everything you may need to create a good photographic effect. That is on paper though, and in practice things don't quite work out that way. Camera movement itself is actually perfectly intuitive, and there's even a precision mode toggle for fine adjustments, but the limitations start to show once you open the settings menu to adjust the field of view. With a viewing angle range of 50 to 130 degrees, the field of view is something equivalent to a 10 to 40mm zoom on a real camera lens. This means that you've got an extremely wide angle with lots of stretch distortion at one end, and even the maximum zoom at the other end is barely enough to compose intimate portraits, and certainly not enough for that more cinematic look. That limit is quickly compounded too by a large collision box that prevents the camera from actually getting close to the characters, or even dropping much below waist height. As a result, you'll quickly discover that the photo mode restricts the variety of compositions that you might be able to achieve, though this soon becomes academic thanks to the manual focus options. Ignoring the fact that it's shown in millimeters when it should surely be centimeters, the range of focus adjustment is simply too small. The maximum value of 200 means that the camera can only focus on objects that are no more than 2 meters away, much less than the camera's own range of movement. Combine that with the fact that you can't actually get closer than 80 centimeters to a subject anyway, and you're left with a simply tiny effective window to work in. Placing the camera outside that range basically means that you've got to give up any depth of field effects, otherwise the subjects will just be out of focus. It's a real shame actually, because the aperture values otherwise do a great job and create a soft defocus on the foreground and the background, along with a nice circular bokeh. It has to be said then that this seems like one of those cases where features have been included in the photo mode without any real thought about exactly how they might be used. Elsewhere in the photo mode UI, there's a selection of 7 colour filters, as well as a custom filter option that opens up manual control of gamma, brightness, contrast and saturation. These work really well and can be used in a variety of ways to create styles that go beyond anything that the default filters offer. That is, apart from the film grain and the vignette that are added exclusively by the cinematic filter style. Neither of these can actually be applied or adjusted any other way. Not even via the separate vignette option. Instead, this is where you'll find the 4 graphical frame overlays, albeit quite well designed ones. Other good intentions can be seen in this photo mode, with the optional thirds grid for example, or even the ability to save and load your preferred camera lens setup. It's just unfortunate then that these settings are so inadvertently limiting. While the photo mode itself is quite lackluster, the narrative storytelling of Banishers Ghosts of New Eden still manages to set it apart. Right from the outset, it's hard not to become invested in the tales of the Banishers themselves, as well as the many unique characters they meet along the way.
Lo, the halfpenny Redeemer come to save us. Thou may enter, O great Saviour.
This naturally translates into a desire to photograph them, maybe to capture a hint of those stories that hide behind the eyes of each high-quality character model. With no access to camera movement during the narrative sequences though, you'll have to make do with the less impressively lit in-play models to manage that. Exploration of the fictional but period-authentic North American lands will lead you to many an interesting and eye-catching area of natural beauty and haunting atmosphere. Things can also be seen in an entirely different light by switching from Red to Antea for her uniquely ethereal view of the world, although this does seem to disable depth of field effects entirely. Out and About is also where you'll encounter the vast majority of the game's combat scenarios, as the Banishers are regularly attacked while wandering through the eerie wilderness. The various tormented spectres, possessed corpses and more powerful demons make for some decent opportunities to shoot some action. The same can be said for the dynamism of the fighting itself actually, as you fluidly swap between Red's melee and ranged weapons, or Antea's otherworldly skills. Once again though, the limitations of the photo mode put a crimp on things, not least because the minute workable focus range makes it extremely difficult to capture the action with any real sense of style. It all leaves this photo mode feeling like something of a missed opportunity, and one that certainly makes a case to use external camera tools on PC to unlock the game's obvious photographic potential.
Lord, wilt thou also slay the righteous?
Banishers Ghosts of New Eden is a hugely enjoyable, beautiful and powerful game that's just crying out to be photographed, and Don't Nod evidently recognised that when they added a photo mode. It is one that could and should have offered way more than it currently does though. A good feature list is undermined by limitations that compound each other and heavily restrict your creative options. While there are some good shots to be had with a little perseverance, many opportunities will be banished to the ether and might leave your photographic urges tormented with unfinished business.
Never heard a worse pun. I like it. Yes.